Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. So I'm laughing. Christina's really got me laughing. And we're not going to get into this. Welcome to the show, Christina Rickardsson. Great to see you.
Hi, Simon. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, the honor is mutual. It's all mine. It's not all mine. It's mutual, right? And we're here in a safe space for adoptees to share stuff and learn stuff and as I kind of say, share our learnings in the hope that catalyzes learnings in amongst the listeners. That's what I'm always trying to do, listeners. So what I'm doing is mining the guests. I'm asking questions of the guests to kind of draw out their insights in the hope that their insights will prompt insights.
I love that. I love sharing. I think it's very important that we share our experience, not only when it comes to being adopted, but, about life. I think that is the way that we help each other, overcome the things that life throws our way, So I love that idea.
Yeah. And we're sharing as best we can. And I say this quite a lot. I said it on the last podcast. It's like, we can't give you, if I could give you if I could give you listeners the insights, then I would, right? I would give you the insights, but I can't give you them. You have to have them for yourselves.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can do that, because we are all so different, and we have different experience. So it's natural that no one can have the answer to what's right and wrong, and what one should do or not. I think it's for all of us to find our own way in life, our own road to walk, but what we can do is give each other, a lending. We can help each other by sharing our experience and say, how did I do when this happened to me? And that way we can help each other. And just knowing that you are not alone, I'm not alone, you are not alone, and this, what we are doing now helps, I think.
Yeah. Can you hear my wife using the vacuum cleaner in the next room?
No, I can't.
That's great. Well, if you can't hear it, the listeners can't hear it, so that's great. We were talking about what we were going to talk about. So I met with Christina a couple of weeks ago, and one of the words that really stuck out for me was identity shock. So that was a phrase that Christina came up with, and then we've discussed, so what's this podcast about? And I said, okay, so what are we trying to do here? What we're trying to help the listeners with? And Christina, she's very modest about her English, but she came up with this word, overcoming. So the title of this podcast is Overcoming Identity Shock. Okay, so how does that sum up your life? That's a really big question. I hope it's not a silly question, but
no, it's definitely not a silly question. I don't believe in silly questions. I believe in stupid ones. No, I'm just kidding.
And it was a stupid one.
No, it was not. That was just my bad sense of humor, I like to make jokes. I don't, and they are not so good. My friends have told me, like, don't do them too often,
Humor is difficult, right? Humor in different languages is really
it's very really difficult. Yeah, I speak 3 languages, actually 2.5. And the funny thing with that is that, I was born in Brazil and I lived in Brazil until I was 8 years old, and so my first language is Portuguese, but I was adopted to Sweden when I was 8 years old. And in 2 months, I forgot all Portuguese. I had 5 words left, and I learned Swedish because no one in Sweden speaks Portuguese. And they didn't give me a tutor in school because I ended up in this small village with only 2,700 people, living in Vindeln. So basically, I couldn't keep my first language. So Swedish became my first language, which is actually my second language. So English is actually my third language, but became my second language. And now Portuguese, that was my first language, is now my third language. So it's,
this is identity shock. This is This is language changes are part of identity shock, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So with when the language change and the culture change, somehow a part of your identity change too. So that's what happens with it, when you move from one country to another one. And in my case, it wasn't like I was taken, from my mother. They pulled us apart. She was standing on one side of the orphanage door, and I was standing on the other side, and we were holding each other's hand, and they literally took me, up and pulled me away from her while I was screaming, I want to be with my mom. And my mom was screaming, you can't take my daughter, and then just a couple of, I think, in weeks or like 1 month, 1.5 months later, two white people, because I'm brown, and two white people from Sweden came and and the orphanage told me they are going to be your new parents, so it was like a shock. And then the Brazilian culture and the Swedish culture, they are very far apart. And they ended up in the north part of Sweden, in the forest, basically, with 2,700 people in this village, and in a new country that looks different. Everything is different. And I didn't understand the language. Everyone looked different from me. The rules changed. And because I was raised in a cave, you know this, Simon.
Yeah.
The first 6 years of my life, I was raised in a cave with my biological mother alone. And then I ended up on the streets of São Paulo and in favelas, and then in an orphanage, and then Sweden. So I had gone through a lot of shocks before, but I was still within my culture and within my safety net with my mom, But now in Sweden, everything was different. And what I came to learn, the first thing I came to learn was that the way I acted, the way I looked, the way I dressed, the way I talked, the way I moved my body, everything about me was wrong in this country. Not only that I looked different, my friends were white and blue-eyed, green-eyed, blonde or brown hair, and I was different. And I came to realize, that I had to change to fit in, otherwise I wouldn't survive. And it's kind of strange, being 8 years old and understanding that kind of thing, that you have to change who you are. So what I did basically was that I put Christiana, this identity, Christiana, that was me, the foundation of me. I took her and I basically put her in a box, and I put that box in the attic, and then I created this new Christina Rickardsson, My Brazilian name was Christiana Mara Coelho. And they renamed me, and then I started acting and trying to fit into this world that I was not born into. And that was psychologically a struggle that was, very, very tough. The first time I actually thought about taking my life, I was 10 years old, because the struggle inside of myself was so unbearable, and no one outside saw this, because I was smiling, I was doing what the orphanage told me to do, show gratitude to this new family, because they are basically saving me from poverty. So I should show them gratitude, and I should smile, and I should fit in. But inside I was dying, and I was creating this new identity while my old identity was suffocating in the attic,
Yeah.
in a box.
Wow. But you're smiling about that now.
Yeah, I am. I am, because and it's actually, it's a good smile, because I think you and I, we talked about this, last time we spoke to each other, because After I wrote my book, Never Stop Walking, and it became a success, I could never, I could never dream for a better, start for my book, and that so many people wanted to read my story. I got the question from a lot of the journalists, asking me, because there is a lot of trauma in my life, both in Brazil, but here in Sweden. And the question I always got was like, if you could go back and change anything, would you do it? And I think that when you are in a bad place in life, emotionally and everything, and you are sad and you may be depressed or whatever, you would say yes, because you don't want to feel like that, you don't want to live like that, and it's easy to see how everything that happened to you, how it had this negative effect on your life, but today I look back and I don't want to change it, even if there are some traumas that I don't wish for anyone to experience, and no one should experience some of those traumas. But if I go back and change something, that would mean that I would have to change who I am today, because I would be another person without those experience, because I believe that we are a sum of our experience, our thoughts and experience. And even though I have a lot of, things that I'm not perfect, far from it, I still like who I am today. So is why I am smiling when we talk about this, because I overcame all of that. I did, and it wasn't easy. Many times it wasn't easy, but I am proud that I did.
Yeah. So the thing that comes to my mind is that kind of the power of, the force of nature. We refer to people, I don't know if you've heard this in Sweden, we refer to people as they're a force of nature. Yeah, have you heard that? You heard that word?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, force of nature.
So it seems to me that that your nature, your essence, has driven you through all this. A kind of and this is a bit of a fancy word, indomitable spirit, right? It's just like something within you is so powerful that it's propelled you through all this, through all the tricky stuff that you've been through. It's been about your nature, kind of, rather than your mindset. That's what I'm hearing. But I'd love to hear what you think about it.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I also think that it's a combination. I don't think that life is that easy, that it's just, a nature of something. I think it's the combination, that the mindset and the nature. I have this fighting spirit in me. I know I really don't like unfairness. For example, if someone is treating me or treating someone of my friends or family, or even someone I don't know, unfairly, I am that kind of person that will stand up and take that fight. If of course I don't take all the fights, but I will stand up for myself and for other people. So I do have some kind of that force of nature that you're talking about, but it's also a mindset, because I believe that the way you think of things will change how you view them, and will change how you react to what happens to you. And what for example, a friend of mine said she had gone through something very very tough in life, divorce, and 2 children, and the man left her for another one, and she just broke down, and she was like, Christina, I have lived this privileged life, with I had a good family, I had a good childhood, education, everything. I have a beautiful family. We are now split, but you know, everything, and it's breaking me down. And you've gone through, you lost two mothers, you cultural shock, you know, you've seen your best friend being killed, you've been mistreated in every kind of way, you know, living on the streets, and here in Sweden, you know, you've been called the N-word, you know. I don't want to use it, I don't like to use that word. And you've been treated, you didn't get the job because you have another skin color, you know, and everything, and still you don't break down, you know. And I told her, I do break down, I'm human too, you know, I do break down, but I do have this mindset of not allowing myself, and if it's good or bad, I can't say, I can just say what I do, to not allow myself to become a victim, even if I am a victim of circumstances, you know, of things that happen. I try to say to myself, like, okay, so this happened, this was not fair, and then I still take, I believe in responsibility, and I believe that, you know, there are always, when someone closed the door, a window will open. There are always ways to get to another place. So I have that kind of mindset. So I think it's where that mindset comes from. Maybe there is this force of nature you're talking of, I don't know, but I think it's a combination, and also of having, you know, surrounding yourself with good people. That is very important, that you have friends that build you up and don't break you down, you know, that listen to you, are there for you, and becomes like family. That you cut out people that are negative, people that wants to see you fail, people that somehow, because there are people like that, that somehow thrive on your pain and your failures, you know, and everything. So cut those people out and try to surround myself with, to create an environment where I can thrive, where the possibility for me to thrive personally and in my workspace and everything, you know, that the possibility for that happening is increases, you know. Yeah. I don't know if that was, you know, my English is not that good, so you maybe you're gonna have to help me sometimes.
Yeah. Have you ever met anybody that's good at modesty? That's a
Yeah, I
joke.
have.
That's a
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah, okay.
I'm really good at modesty. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, you know what I said, that humor is difficult. That's just like,
Yeah.
you're like, your English is perfect. So let's just, yeah.
Okay, we skip that. Okay, thank you. All right.
So one of my favorite things that I learned from a guy who was instrumental in doing what I do now, right? Doing that is, it's hard to see the picture when we're in the frame.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Which is kind of why we have coaches, mentors, friends, therapists, people that we talk to, confidants, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
It's hard to see the picture because we find it hard. Like you, for example, you find it hard to accept my compliment on how great your English is, right? And I find it hard to oh yeah, something happened this morning. I was talking to another guest, and she said, "Oh, you do a great job of bringing stuff out of people when you're interviewing them." And I thought, that's great. That's great. I've never thought that. The way I see it is that sometimes I put too much of my theory into the conversation.
Yeah.
So she said, "You do a great job of getting stuff out," and I thought I put too much of my stuff in. Right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to see the picture when we're in the frame. What it seems to me, I'm just going to run this past you, is that you've kind of you've seen your own ability to survive, and you've seen your own ability to thrive, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what so, and that has given you, that has informed your mindset that you can, right?
Yeah.
So I sent Michelle, a lady came on the podcast a while ago. She messaged me on Facebook yesterday, and she asked me to share something, and as I was reading through what she'd asked me to share, I came up with this idea that we are all, every single one of us is braver than we think, and the idea that courage is revealed rather than strengthened. So your spirit, your courage, your bravery has been revealed to you. You have seen it for yourself, and that has given you that has informed your mindset that you can survive and thrive despite the identity shock stuff that you've been through.
Yeah, I think that in. Sorry,
you were just about to answer, and
Yeah.
then I asked you the question that was completely pointless because you'd already started answering.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've got the question, like, if you were, when I had this lecture, it was actually in the States, in Texas. I went to one of the university, invited me to hold a talk, a speech for them. And afterwards, I was asked by one of the students, if you were to describe yourself with one word, what would it be? And when you're on stage, it's like you don't have that much time thinking of this. And even though in my private life, I walk around and I'm a thinker, so I think a lot, and I love writing and put my thoughts into writing and everything. But I was a little bit taken aback by the question, because, like, if I were to describe myself with one word, often I like to describe myself, I like to talk, so I describe myself with many words. And immediately, it instinctively and immediately what I said was survival, survivor. I'm a survivor. And it's not something that I actually really like saying there and then, because I don't want to be a person that, survives. I want to be a person that lives, because there is a difference, but to describe my life, I learned to be a survivor. And what you're talking about there with bravery is that, what I think of it is that, when you say that, how did you phrase it? Most people are braver than they think.
Yes.
I would like to change one word there. Instead of saying that people are braver, is that people can be much braver than they believe they are.
Yes.
But we rarely know that, because we are not forced. Because to be brave, I think sometimes we have to be forced into situations when we have no other choice but to, like in my case as a child, to lie down and die, or to fight for your survival. And so already, as because I was raised in a cave, and on the streets, already there, as a street child, I was forced by life to learn to survive. So that became a part of my identity, of my Christiana's, the Brazilian girl's identity, to fight for her life and survive in any circumstances, whether it's physical or mentally, So yeah, I was forced into that, to become a survivor. And then when I came to Sweden, one would think that when you have your basic needs met, when you have a house, when you have a bed, you have food every day, and you can go to school, which I couldn't do before, and you suddenly have this life where you actually have the opportunity, society gives you the opportunity to create something of yourself. Then, the struggle became mentally for me, and it was about surviving mentally. And then I learned to go from surviving physically on the streets to survive mentally. and to fight for, for that. And then after a while, I kind of started to understand that surviving is not living, it's not enough. So I had to find a way, with help from psychologists and friends and everything, to find a way to understand, because I had never lived, I had only survived. So to understand, how do I start living? Because it's when you start living that you can start thriving. While you're surviving, you're not thriving, you're just surviving different obstacles in your life. So to be able to thrive, you have to understand, how can you start living, do you know what I mean? You know where I'm going?
Yeah. I think I know where you're going. I think for me, I've never had that. I've never had that. So if you it could be a transition between surviving and thriving, or you could make it. There's another way of looking at it. It might be surviving to living, thriving.
Yes, exactly.
I would say that I've never had the surviving challenge, because because I haven't. I'm not the one that you've done. I've never been on this. I've never worried where my next meal is coming from, like you, right? So I've not had the surviving thing. I would say that there's the living, but I would say that there's a transition, between living, living and thriving, and the other way. So some listeners may have had that 3 transition. So they may have experienced the surviving to living to thriving. And some of them may be just more like me, just had that living to thriving transition. Or some people might think they're on the journey, right?
Yeah.
That's an interesting one, right? Because I interviewed a lady called Rebecca Autumn Sanson for the podcast of last year. She's an adoptee, and very quite a well-known name in some American adoption circles. She's made a film. She's a filmmaker professionally, and she's put her 2 passions, adoption and filmmaking, into a project with Nancy Verrier, the author of The Primal Wound. And I asked her, what comes to your mind when you hear these words, thriving adoptees? And she said, I don't think I am thriving.
Yeah.
And to me, I quizzed her on that. I said, well, you seem to be thriving to me, the stuff that you share on social, which is genuine stuff. She's not one of those, Instagram
posting a selfie with a duck face.
Yeah. She's real.
Sorry, I was harsh now. Yeah.
No. She's real, and she's working with Nancy Verrier on this program. So she's going out into the world. She's found a meaning. Her struggles with. So she seems to be thriving to me, but she doesn't see it that way herself. And I think it goes back to that picture, that thing that I said. It's hard to see the picture when we're in the frame, and we think, oh, right. So we don't think we're thriving when other people think that we are.
But I think that is because we are different as humans too. Because, like, for example, I was at another university here in Sweden, and Uppsala, and one of the students, asked me, said to me, like, you are so successful, your book was a success, you done this, you done that, and blah 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 and blah blah blah. And I just looked at that person and I just said, like, okay, and you have this and you do that, you travel there, and I was like, you know what, that is not success for me. I don't look at it. I mean, for me, to be successful is to be in balance with myself, is to feel that, I can wake up and because I don't do this every day, there are days that they're not good, but success for me is to be mentally strong, is to feel gratitude towards myself and the life I have, and that has nothing to do with you know, how many books I sell, or how many interviews, or how many what I'm doing on TV or whatever. Those kind of things, it doesn't. They are not life. Those things are not what matters. It's the relationships you have. It's the love you have in your life. It's is how you view yourself, you know, those kind of things, the balance, that is important to me. And so I measure my success and my thriving through my how what would be the English word for that? Oh God, I can't actually find the word, so I'm gonna try to describe it. Where I'm like I said, where I mentally are, you know, because there are sometimes you know, when the trauma and the things from my childhood takes over, and I go back into a dark place, because I don't believe, like, what's her name, Rebecca, like she says, like, thriving is such a strong word, you know, and there will be days when I am thriving, you know, but there are many days when I'm not. There are many days when I'm back to surviving. But for other people, because I still go up and I go to work most of the times, you know, and I do my thing and I post something, you know, on Instagram or whatever, and for people, you know, they look at me and they see me smiling, they see me, you know, dressed in a certain way, walking and doing everything, and for them it looks like, you know, I'm always well, and I'm always strong, and I'm always this and that, but that is of course not the case.
Okay.
And I think that is part of life. I think it's like that for all of us, more or less, you know. And thriving is a very strong word, because I think we have ups and downs, and sometimes I am thriving, but sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm just surviving again, and then I need to get back to that point where I'm living again and thriving, you know.
So it all comes down to definition.
Yeah, I
And
think, and what I mean for me, thriving and having a good life can mean one thing, while for you it means something else.
yes.
So yeah,
So
exactly.
I was gonna say, right,
Perspective.
thriving to me doesn't mean never feeling bad again, right? So I would describe you and me as both thriving. Okay,
Mm.
that's how I hope you don't think that, you know, like because my definition of thriving includes feeling SH1T, right?
Sorry, feeling.
Feeling shit,
Yeah.
right? So there's a for me, feeling bad doesn't mean that I am bad. Feeling that I'm not thriving doesn't mean that I am not thriving. It's the difference between feelings and thought. So essentially, being okay with not feeling okay.
Mm.
Being okay with not feeling okay. So and that's where the freedom is for me.
Yeah.
I am less bothered about feeling shit than I used to be.
Yeah.
So thriving, I am
I
thriving,
think it's a part of
and
accepting
yes,
also.
yes,
Mm.
I am thriving in my acceptance of sometimes feeling insecure,
Yes.
of sometimes feeling triggered, of sometimes feeling that I'm just surviving. I am okay. I am thriving with the feelings of insecurity. I am
Yeah.
less bothered about feeling shit.
Yeah, when I was younger, I think the nice thing about getting older is that you get some kind of, you get a little wiser, I think. I hope at least that that's the thing that is happening. But because when I was younger, 20, 25 or something like that, and I would end up in this kind of period of depression, or feeling really bad and having all of these emotions and thoughts, and trauma from the life from my life, to deal with. And it would scare me. It would scare
Yes.
me because I would be like, oh my God, even though I had been through it before, but it would scare me, and I would be like, what if I can't get through this? What if I can't get to the other side? Will it end with me, taking my life, or will I always live a life feeling this kind of way? Will it always be this dark? Will the pain always be this strong? But now when I end up in those kind of moments, because of course I do, I mean, I suffered from complex PTSD. So because I had a lot of traumas, like I told you before. So when I end up there, now the panic is gone. I can get a little, now it's more like I can get annoyed, because I feel like, oh, do I have to feel like this again? Oh, do I have to go through this again? And do this feeling have to come up again? But now I have a more of a balance and an acceptance, knowing that this too shall pass. There will come a time when I will be laughing again, when I will be smiling from the heart, from the soul, from the very essence of my being, and I will be happy again, and I will do stuff again, and I will get out of bed, and um, I will be able to be living again. So now what I do is that I accept that I'm feeling what I'm feeling, and instead put my focus and my mind to trying to do what I can do while I'm in that kind of state. Is that correct said state?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I sum that up in one question?
Yeah.
So is trauma less scary than it was?
It's not less scary, it's more understandable. Yeah, actually you're right, actually, because it's more understandable, it's actually a little bit less scary. It doesn't hurt less, but it's less scary. Yes, you're correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's interesting when you say that I'm right, because all I was trying to do, I wasn't trying to be right. I was just trying to tease out the
Oh,
stuff.
Simon,
Your
who is
rightness.
being modest now?
Yeah. I'm great at modesty. Yeah.
Yeah. That is
Um,
actually the Swedish part of me, to be honest, because in Sweden, people are, we are taught to be. We have this word lagom, which you don't have this word in English, but it would mean something, to not be too much or too little. You should not be too good, but you should not be too bad. You should not, the food, it's to be in between. Swedish people, I believe Swedish people culturally are pretty modest, but Brazilians, they are more, they are different. So it depends. When you're talking to me, my modesty will depend on how much of one of my identities, because I have two, if there is the Christina, the Swedish identity, or if it is Christiana, the Brazilian identity, that is speaking to you more.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So uh, I've had two names as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking to Simon Jonathan Benn.
Okay.
But I was David Anthony Flower, right?
It's a nice
So,
name too.
yeah,
Simon and David. Those are your two names.
yeah. So the difference between Christina and Christiana is quite a lot different
Yes.
to the difference between Simon and David, right? Okay.
Yes.
this is where I go a bit esoteric or a bit philosophical, a bit strange. This might sound a little bit strange. Okay. So
I will try to keep up.
well, yeah, I'll just, if it doesn't go anywhere, we'll go somewhere else, right? So when I got my little piece of paper, so I was going to get, I don't know, I can't remember what they said I was going to get. So I was trying to find my birth mother, and I contacted an organization. They said yes, adoption organisation here in Yorkshire, in the north of England, one in Leeds, which is our big city. We've had some Swedish players actually playing for Leeds United. Anyway, I can't remember who they are. Yeah. Anyway, diversion. Keep on track, Simon. Keep on track. So I had to fill out a form, and then I had to see a counsellor guy who still hasn't come on the podcast. You know who you are. He's called Mike. I wonder if he'll listen to this podcast.
If you follow up with saying, "And I know where you live," you're gonna scare me a little bit.
Oh, okay. Right. No, I know Mike.
That was the bad joke from that was the joke, you know.
Okay, sorry.
In Sweden, that would have been more fun. Yeah, it didn't go well with the English there for me.
So I met with Mike, and he handed me a piece of paper, and it had my birth mother's name on it, Patricia Joan Flower. And I thought, oh, right, okay. But underneath it said David Anthony Flower. Like I didn't know that the piece of paper was going to give me the piece of paper was going to give me another name, right? So I looked at this piece of paper. I thought, oh, David Anthony Flower. And then I thought, I've had two names. Isn't that curious? I've had two names. Who's ever had two names before? Isn't that a bit weird? You know, yeah, that's weird. And a bit later on, I was listening to something about identity. I was listening to an audio book about identity, and it said, we're not our names. And I thought, that's true. Because if I've had two names, I can't actually be either. That's my identity must be different to that. A name is a label, but we're not our labels. So and this kind of this all fed into my quest for identity. So does that make any sense at all?
I mean, what you're talking about, it takes me to thinking about. I think this is correct in English too. A rose will still be a rose with another name, you know, or something like that. I don't know, you know. So yeah, you are still you, even if you have, you know, another name. The being, your essence and your being, you know, you are you.
Yes.
But I do believe in the power of names too, you know, because I remember when my mom, my not my biological mom, my adoptive mom, Lillian, when she came to my new room in Vindeln in our house, and she sat down on the bed next to me, and she goes like, I had been in Sweden, I think 1 month or something like that, and she goes like, Christiana, your father and I, we have been talking, you know, and in a couple of days we are going to the church, and we are going to change your name. And I remember the shock, you know. I was 8 years old, sitting there next to this person that is now my mom, you know, and I still haven't, the mom feelings are not there for me, you know, the feeling like a daughter to this woman, because I already had a mom, you know. I lived with her most of my life, and this strange woman is now deciding that she has the right to take away who I am, because I am Christiana, you know, and put another name to me. So and give me another name. And I told her that, you know, very because I became sad, not angry, but sad, and I didn't understand. So I told her I don't want to do that. And she tells me, well, we are doing this out of love and concern, and we want the best for you. And the reason why we are doing it is because, one, you have a city in Denmark, which is the neighbor in country to Sweden, and a city where, you know, there is a lot of drugs, and the name of the city is Christiania, and your name is Christiana. So it's very similar, and we don't want people to misunderstand, but also because you are now in Sweden, and in the future it's important that you have a Swedish name, because that will help you to get jobs, you know. So already as an 8-year-old, I had to, you know, to handle the society's, and excuse my language here, but to handle the society's bullshit, you know, when it comes to if you have the wrong name, you will have a harder time to find a job, you know, because then I look different and I have another name. So that will be, you know, make it harder for me. But and they did this out of love, of course. But for me, as 8 years old, that was, you're taking my identity away from me, because my name tells who I am. So there is power to a name too, you know. And I came to realize that even more, because when I changed to Christina, you know, it was my identity started changing too. And so now I am this 39 years old woman, you know, who has two identities in one body. I have the Christiana, the Brazilian identity, you know, who is very, you know, adventurous, strong, and a survivor, you know, and love to laugh and have a lot of love, you know, even though she went through a lot. And then I have this second identity, which is Christina, the Swedish woman, that is, you know, a lot more Swedish, and she's so different from Christiana. And she's, you know, a control freak, you know. She's not the one when things get bad, she's not actually the one making us survive. It's Christiana, because Christiana is the true survivor, you know. So every time I'm in a bad spot, Christiana is the one who gets me out of that, while Christina is the one who keeps everything in order and in place, you know. Like the Swedish society is like, you know, everything in order, in place, you know, the culture. And that was just one example, you know. And it becomes very clear when I go to Brazil, and I live in Brazil like I did now during the pandemic for 1.5 years. And some of my Swedish friends sometimes follows me, and they go like, oh, you're like a total different person here. And not just, you know, the different person you become when you go on vacation, and you're more light and you're more happy, and, you know, it's like, you're a different person here. And I'm like, no, I'm not a different person. I'm just Christiana, you know. And you never seen her, because in Sweden, there is no place for her, you know, because she doesn't fit in.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Wow. So my grandma was called Lillian.
Oh, I love the name Lillian, because my favorite flowers are lilies, and it's very close to, in Sweden at least, it's very close to the name. So and my mother loved lilies. You know, she passed away when I was 15 and a half, and I lost my first mother, you know, when I was 8 years old. So I basically lost 2 mothers within, you know, 15 years, 16. And that was very traumatic. And so, you know, everything that reminds me of, because I had 2 good mothers, you know, I really love them, and they made a huge impact on my life, and are one of the big reasons, you know, to who I am today, and to, you know, to keep fighting and surviving. The name of my book is Never Stop Walking, and it was actually my mom in Brazil, my biological mother, who told me, Christiana, whatever happens in your life, you know, wherever struggles you are facing, and whatever life throws your way, never stop walking. And I didn't understand it when I was 7 years old, but later on, when I became a teenager in Sweden, and my mom passed away in our family, you know, it was a enormous, you know, huge blow and change in our family, in our everyday life, losing our mother, you know. And I came to remember my biological mom, what she told me: you never stop walking, you know. And I never did. And I've been close many times, not many, but you know, a few times, to stop walking, to give up, to give in. And I always see my mom, my biological mom, you know, telling me to not stop. And I see the struggle that Lilian, my Swedish mom, you know, how she struggled when the doctors told her that she have only one year to live with her cancer. And she have fought for so many years to have children, you know, she really loved us.
Yeah.
And she fought the doctors, she fought the cancer, and she lived for 4 years, giving us, you know, my brother, he was 8 years old when he lost her, instead of being 4 years or 5 years old, you know, and that does, it makes a huge difference. So seeing my parents, you know, my mom's fighting and surviving in different kind of environments, one mother in a poor environment with a society that is not giving her opportunities to create her life, and another mother, you know, struggling and surviving in an environment where it's, you know, we are not poor, and, you know, society are good to us and everything. There are two different struggles, but they are struggle in life, you know, and seeing that and being a part of that, I think that made me stronger too, you know.
Yeah. Wow. I was going to say, after I made that, just the comment about my grandma, who just put a bit of humor into this. So, you know, we're talking about looking like people and that sort of stuff, right? So
Yeah.
my wife never met my grandma Lillian, but she's seen pictures of her, and she says that she looks like my dad in drag.
You're kidding. Oh.
So,
but your grandmother, was she like, you knew her, and
yeah, I knew Lillian.
Yeah, you knew Lilian, yeah. And was she a good grandmother?
Yeah. Yeah, she had it more together than the other grandma that I had. Two grandmas. The other one had a bit of a chip. Do you know what I mean by saying a chip on the shoulder?
I heard the expression before, but I have to think about it. No, just tell me.
Yeah, she had chip on the shoulder. What word would you use for that? So it would be like a bit of anger, a bit of resentment.
Yeah.
Resentment.
Yeah. A little bitterness.
Bitterness and resentment. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So Lillian didn't have quite as big a chip on her shoulder. But she, you know, we've all got chips on our shoulder, but they're not who we are, right? So I was going to say that, you know, your name, my reaction to the name change was obviously clearly hugely different to your reaction to the name change, right? Because I wasn't, neither of us had power. I wasn't aware of it happening. I wasn't aware that it had happened until 48 years, whatever, how many years later than it was. And it wasn't taken off me. I wasn't aware of it being taken off me. And you, as you say, you were aware of it. And obviously the name is just a tiny thing. So, you know, you talked about, before we started recording, you talked about the extent of the identity shock. So we've got name, we've got name, we've got parents, we've got culture, we've got language. You know, like your identity shock was holistic. It was the whole shebang.
Yeah. But I think it's also what it symbolized, you know, because we talked also, like you said, you know, a name is, you know, you are still you, even if your name changed. So, you know, so does the name really have that huge of an impact, you know, so, but I think it's what it represents, because for me, already so much had been taken away. You know, I didn't see in the beginning or anything like that I was gaining things, you know, that I was gaining this life that I should, like some people, and I hate this, you know, when some Swedish people were like, oh, you should be so grateful for being adopted because now you have, you know, a chance to live a life here in Sweden, like Sweden is the perfect country and blah blah blah, you know. and you should be grateful, you should be grateful, all the time telling me that I should be grateful, while inside I was like feeling, everything has been taken away from me. You literally pulled me away from my mother. You literally pulled me away from my culture. Like my family, everything was taken away. And now I'm sitting here in Sweden, and the last things, two things that I have left, no, actually three, because I always have my memories, so that is something, no one can take my memories away from me, but what I still have left is my little brother. He's a part of Brazil that I have with me, and he was just 2 years old, so I couldn't talk to him, and he didn't share the same adoption story that I do, because he was just a baby. He doesn't remember anything, but he's still a part, because I have memories of him and I and a life together in Brazil. But then what I had, the second thing I had, it was my name, Christiana, and now they're telling me that they are going to take that away. So basically the name became even more important, because it represented something that I still had from a time and a life and an identity that is important to me. And now, and there I was sitting, 8 years old, realizing that I have no saying in that this part of myself is also being taken away from me, and I have to accept that. And I not feeling that it's fair. This is not fair. I should be able to have my own name and be the person that I am. This should not be a decision that other people make for me. So it was more the feeling of what I'm losing again.
Yeah, the name was
away.
The name was a symbol. Yeah, the name was a symbol of a far, like an overwhelming identity shock. Whereas my identity shock, because I was, I came from, like I only moved 80 miles, not 3,000 or 4,000, however many it is, from Brazil to Sweden. I didn't move. So I didn't move a culture. I moved from a white birth mother to a white adopted mother. My identity shock I wasn't aware of having the name. I didn't feel the loss of that. My shock was minuscule compared to yours. And yet, you seem to be at peace with two identities.
Well, I'm more at peace. I'm actually writing the second book that will be published next year, which is a follow-up to the first one. And while I was writing the first one, I was coming to this understanding of my two identities, because I always known that I have these two identities. But Christina has been so strong, and Christiana has been tucked away in the attic, and so I didn't understand that to have a life where I can, feel more normal and, have a good life. And with a good life, I'm not talking about material things. I'm talking about the emotional part, of course. I need to understand these two identities, and not only understand them, but also make them somehow start to work together, and that was very hard, because when you have one identity that is from another culture and have another way of thinking of things, and then you have the Swedish identity and that way, and they share the same body, but they are two minds. And this sounds very weird. It's not like it's not like it's like two identities sharing the same body, and they are aware of each other. It's not like one identity takes over and the other one doesn't know what is happening or anything like that. It's just that they are not always collaborating, and that makes it hard, because when they are not collaborating, the result and the consequences of that is that a lot of feelings comes with that I need to handle. And when I say it's both of them, and they handle things differently too. So when it's very hard to describe this, but they also help each other, so what I had to do was to find a way to get them to work together. And this I'm still doing. And I do believe that it gets easier and easier with every year, and they understand each other more, and they communicate with each other better, you know, and they collaborate better. But I have kind of come to the conclusion and accepted it that probably for the rest of my life, I will always have, you know, these two identities, you know, fighting together, struggling together, and sometimes fighting each other. Um, and but I don't see it now like a bad thing. For me now, I actually a couple of years ago, I started to see how this actually enriches my life, you know, to have the ability to connect with two different cultures and pick the best of them, you know, to have two different identities and try to pick the best part of that, you know, of the two identities, you know. And that instead of focusing on the struggle and the negative, to actually trying, and I'm not trying to be this, you know, positive person. I kind of hate people that are overly like, oh, you know, if you only think positive, everything will be like, I just look at those person, I go like, yeah, you're not even fooling yourself, are you, you know? It's like, just stop, you know. So but I still, there is this, there are it is important how we think about things, and how we, because there is in darkness there is light, and in light there is darkness, you know. So I try to focus on what can I use. And one thing about, you know, when I was in Brazil now, I love this about Brazilians, you know, and Brazilians, they are very proud about that they are people that solve problems. You know, you can throw any freaking problem at them and they solve it. And they kind of brag about this too. You know, we solve problems, we are problem solvers. And you know, they tell me this, and I just look at them and I go like, yeah, you know why you guys are good at solving problems? Because you guys are very good at creating them, you know, so you have to be good at solving them. So that's basically what I try to do. Instead of just, you know, create problem or just look at the problem, I go in with the mindset not to be overly positive, but to see the possibilities of solving the problem. And I think that makes a huge change in what kind of life you will have, you know, and how much pain you will feel, and so on.
Have I shared my diamond metaphor with you?
Oh, I don't think so. No, I'm curious. No, I don't think so.
Okay. So I do talk about it quite a lot. Hopefully listeners aren't getting bored of it. Well, if you've got this far into the podcast, you're not bored of it, are you? So you're still listening, listeners. Okay. So I'm doing this on video. So listeners, imagine a clenched fist. This is the trauma that the clenched fist is a metaphor for the trauma that we've been through.
Mm-hmm.
And the natural and it's white knuckle stuff. And you know, when it's complex PTSD like Christina's has, do you describe it as something you have, something you had, something you've been through, or is it past, or what?
Now I have the what do you call the aftermath of having the complex. You know, I still have periods where I can feel the echo of it. Would that be a good expression for it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So so if you watch my hand, Christina. So
yes.
Look, watch my fist, right? So this is this is the anger. You know, the fist is a metaphor for the trauma, because the trauma often comes out as anger. It definitely has for me, right? Now, the natural, essential, you used the word essential a while ago, the essential nature and the essential natural posture of our hand is open, right? So if I gently open up my fingers, it feels a diamond. And the diamond is the kind of like, is a metaphor for the infinite spiritual infinite worth, spiritual essence of who we truly are. Kind of that the diamond cannot, like, however tightly I squeeze my hand, however firmly I clench my fist, I can do no damage to the diamond whatsoever, because of the essence of who the diamond is, right? So that's kind of my take on life. And the diamond is who we are. So another way of saying it is that, you know, we are one spiritual being having 7 billion human experiences. So the diamond is the oneness. Okay.
Yeah.
All the trauma, all the feelings, all the anger, all the insecurity, all the mindset stuff, all that stuff is in the human experience, but the spiritual essence is who we truly are. So with that in mind, right, I came up with a little drawing for you. So I've been making notes as I do. With a little drawing for you. So if you obviously this is audio, this podcast, so it's a little bit tricky to do it. So if you were to all right, okay, so I'll get you to explain it and see if it actually makes any sense to you. So can you explain what you can see on the paper?
Okay, so I'm seeing 2 circles. One a small circle inside the big circle, and then you have a cut, like you have what you say, like slice, like it's like a road, like a circle road or something, and in the middle it says diamond.
Yes.
Am I right, reading correct? And then on my right side, probably your left, then it says, is it brain? Like, you should be a doctor. Your writing is
terrible.
like a doctor.
Okay, let me take over. Let me take over, because
I can't see.
I'm not intelligent.
I'm talking to you through the phone, so like the picture are very small, so I'm not seeing.
Okay.
So but I thought I said diamond in the middle.
Yes. So listeners, Christine is quite right. There's there at the center of the drawing. I'm going to put a little picture. I'll attach a picture or something onto this. I will type this out and I will make it into a nice picture, and I will attach it to the show notes. Here goes. At the center of the picture, there is a circle and it says diamond. Outside that inner ring, there is an outer ring, and that outer ring has a line at the top and a line at the bottom. So you've got basically 2 semicircles. One says Brazilian Christiana, and the other says Swedish Christina.
Yes.
So Swedish Christina and Brazilian Christiana are basically all the summation of the well, it's symbolic. It's the name, right? So it's the name, it's the culture, it's the country, it's the stuff that you've been through, it's the thoughts, the feelings, it's all you've done. But both of those personas are essentially wrapping around the diamond of who you are.
Yeah, goes into the diamond. I was going to say.
Doesn't it shades the diamond.
Ah, okay, yeah.
It conceals the diamond.
I think it's beautifully, and I don't know if you're using this diamond metaphor now, or if you used it before, or if you use it now because you're talking to me, and because I was born in a city in Brazil that is called Diamantina, which means the city of diamond, you know. And the reason why it got its name is because, you know, the Portuguese, when they came to Brazil and colonized Brazil, they basically, what they did was that they went to this area where it's called Minas Gerais, and it calls Minas Gerais because it had a lot of minerals. And they digged for gold and diamond. And in Diamantina, they found so much. And actually, during this time, Diamantina, the diamonds and gold taken from Diamantina, was actually founding the whole of Portugal's, the whole country. And so it was a lot of like money, a lot of diamonds. But I come from there, and I found it very, very, very nice that you use that, because diamond cannot be broken, And one person in Diamantina told me, because in Diamantina they know who I am and the life I had, and some of them remember, my mom and me living in the cave and walking and sleeping on the street. Some people remember us, And one person that told me, seeing me again, because she knew my mother. She worked at the bus station where me and my mom sometimes, sat down and was begging people for food and money. We were living on the streets begging for our survival and food to survive. And she remembered me, and when she saw me again, she was just like tears and crying, and I kind of remembered her too, And I was like, I was sleeping there, and then I did that, and I ran there, when the memories come back, when you're back for the first time. And she goes like, I never knew if I were going to see you again, but I knew that you would survive, because you are from Diamantina and you are a diamond, and we diamonds cannot be, crushed. And I was just like, I was just feeling this so much, love. And at the same time, I know it's just something maybe, you say, but she is not wrong, and you are not wrong. A diamond, it's hard to break a diamond. I think I read somewhere, and this can be wrong, but I read somewhere that it takes the surface, the heat of the surface of the sun to boil a diamond, something like that. But
Yeah.
I think it was beautiful using that, because I come from the city of diamonds.
Wow.
Not so modest anymore.
Okay, so I have used it before, but I've never used it in the I've never used it with anybody from Diamantina, and nobody has ever. Well, no, that's not fair. Other people have taken the metaphor on. Okay.
Yeah.
Others have added to the story. My heart is singing right now. Okay. In a really lovely way. And so, because nobody's taken on the metaphor as beautiful as that. And I've taken it on from somebody else, right? A guy called Michael Neal, who, he didn't apply it to trauma. He didn't apply it to adoption. He just applied it to identity. And you said that the diamond can't be broken. And that's the bit that really made me sing, actually, my heart sing. And I'm gonna, I totally agree with you. And it can't be broken. And the next thing about the diamond is it can't be scratched, right? You can't scratch a diamond. I think you can with any other. I think you need to scratch a diamond with another diamond or something. You can't scratch a diamond. Okay, so if you can't scratch a diamond, you can't take a knife to a diamond. You can't take a knife to a diamond. You can't take a like a Swiss Army knife. You've seen those things, like the penknife thing?
Yes. Yeah.
You can't take a kitchen knife. You can't take a knife to the diamond and scratch it, and therefore you cannot wound a diamond. So we've got this metaphor that Nancy Verrier came up with called the primal wound. The primal wound. And I have like you, I have definitely felt wounded by adoption. I haven't felt that pain that you have felt consciously in my memory of being ripped away from my mum, which made me want to cry. I have felt wounded, but I have not. Who I truly am and who you truly are as the diamond is unwoundable, because you can't scratch, you can't wound a diamond with a knife.
Yeah, I agree with you when it comes to, and I think it's beautifully said. But there is a part of me, that also wants to add something to this. And I think maybe like in the like, it's like an onion, you know, like if you peel away all the layers, you know, you get into the center, the middle, and there is the diamond, but there are layers, you know. And I think I try to you know, to describe it in a way that if you take a vase, am I pronouncing it correct? Vase. It's like in Swedish it's vase, so we became very close. Like where you put the flowers and water, you know, and put the flowers. A vase. You
can pronounce it vase, vase, or vase.
Oh, vase. Then it's like Swedish. Like then I would use the Swedish word vase. So if you take a vase and you drop it on a stone floor, it will break. So that's how I see a person. You know, if you go through a lot of trauma, parts of you breaks, because that will happen. You know, we feel pain, we feel mistreated, we feel a lot of things. You know, negative things. So you have all those broken pieces of the vase on the floor, you know, broken. But here is the thing, you know, you can glue that back together, and it will become a vase again. You can take all the pieces and glue them back together, so it will become a vase, and you can put water in that. The water will not seep out. You know, all the cracks will be dealt with. And then you can use it again, you know, as it was. But
what if we are rubber balls, not vases?
Yeah, but I mean, let me get to the to the finish line with this. If there is a point, you know, I'm trying to get to it. If there is a point, I will, you know, I would try to get to it. So, but basically, then it's like you put the vase back together, all the pieces, the big one and even the smallest one, and you will have that vase again. And you can even, you know, do it so well that it will almost look like it was like when it was new, but the cracks are always there. And you know that the cracks are there. So for me, like when you asked me if I think that I, you know, will, or something like that, the question was something like that, if I think that I, you know, my two identities will be, you know, whole or one or anything like that. No, the cracks are there, you know. But that doesn't mean that the vase is not working, you know. That doesn't mean that the vase is not doing what it should be doing. That doesn't mean that I cannot be happy. That doesn't mean that I can't live my life. But it's there, and I'm aware that it's there. And I think that it is important to not try to deny what is there inside of us, you know, not trying to be something we are not trying to pretend that we are doing better than we are or anything. I think the important thing to do is to acknowledge the cracks and work through that, you know. That's the only way, at least for me, that has worked, you know, to get to that other side that allows me to be happy with who I am, to be happy with the experiences life have given me, you know, even the sad ones. I'm not, you know, it's not that I'm happy about them, but I can live with them and accept myself with everything that I am, and not only the parts of me, you know, that I created, but the parts of me that other people created, because there are parts of me that I did not create. When someone beats me, and when someone hits me and beats me, and, you know, kills my best friend, you know, shoot my best friend in front of me, there are pieces that people are taking away from me, or there are pieces that they are breaking inside of me, you know. This is not something that I did to myself. It's other human beings doing something to me that are breaking me. And I think that, you know, I can't do anything about that. But
life is
those, you understand what I'm saying? Like those pieces of me, I don't like them, because those pieces, there are pain, and there are pieces that other people put into my piece, you know, in the beginning. But they are there now. And the only thing I can do is to not try to run away from them, but to face the things that happened, and to find a sort of acceptance and understanding and move on.
Okay.
I think I said this a lot during the podcast. I mean, maybe you can just cut some of it out, but I think it's important, you know, to be reminded of it.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, check out Christina's or Christiana's website in the show notes, and check out the book, listeners. Thank you for a fantastic hour and sharing so much with us. Really loved it.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you. Like I said in the beginning, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're a star.
Love.
Thanks, listeners. We will speak to you very soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.